On Larry King Now, comedian and crashing star Pete Holmes.
I had a quiet moment in my car where I was like, what is the story that only I could tell? And I was like, well, I grew up religious. I got married when I was 22. She had an affair when I was 28, left me for another guy, and I was kind of kicked into the deep end of my dream. Meaning I wanted to be a comedian, but I was kind of one foot in, one foot out. I didn't go to seminary, but I went to a Christian college.
What school?
Called Gordon College, which doesn't sound like a real college. It sounds like my parents hired a man named Gordon to tutor me for a summer.
Were your parents religious?
I became more religious than they were because I was a young man and I believed grown-ups. If you were wearing khakis, and God help you if you had glasses, I would believe anything you told me.
Plus,
I shook your hand, Larry. I have a cold. I'm sorry. Somebody get the Purell hose,
you shook my hand and you have a cold?
I did.
You're gonna give me the flu?
No, sir, I don't have
Pete Holmes came here and gave me the flu?
I don't have the flu.
Pete Holmes?
I swear I didn't. There you go. I knew you had it on you.
This is so Jewish. All next on Larry King Now. Welcome to Larry King Now. Our guest is Pete Holmes, comedian, actor, writer, and producer, known for his late-night talker, The Pete Holmes Show, his long-running podcast, You Made It Weird with Pete Holmes, and now the critically acclaimed comedy series, Crashing, which the Village Voice has dubbed a comedian's coming-of-age story with real stakes. Pete also moonlights in the past for The New Yorker. We'll talk about that a little later. The second season of Crashing airs Sundays at 10:30 p.m. on HBO. Crashing's all about you, right?
Yes, sir. I'm just enjoying what a broadcaster you are. It's so great. Like we were talking about ice and coffee, and they're like, Larry, and you're like, Pete Holmes is it was, of course.
I've been doing it a while,
I know,
Pete.
Who if not you, but still,
Who
as
if
someone,
not-
who if not you? Who
So-
would I ask? But Larry King, yes, the show is all about me.
Crashing is the show about you.
It's about
How
me.
did it come about?
Well, I had my talk show, and it was on after your friend Conan, my friend Conan, and it ran for about exactly 80 episodes, and then it got canceled. And I had a quiet moment in my car where I was like, what is the story that only I could tell? What is like the thing that's been kind of written on my bones that's special to me? I was like, well, I grew up religious, evangelical Christian. I got married when I was 22. She had an affair when I was 28, left me for another guy. I joke, a small Italian man named Rocco. And then they went off together, and I was kind of kicked into the deep end of my dream. Meaning I wanted to be a comedian, but I was kind of one foot in, one foot out. Now I have nothing. My idea of God kind of gets challenged. My idea of marriage certainly gets challenged. And next thing I know, I'm in New York City, which is not like a very sweet place. It's a very gruff place. In fact, it reminds me of show business. It doesn't need or want you, just like show business. So the city itself is kind of a good materialization of the idea of the show.
Was she evangelical?
In the way that I was, which was not very sturdily, meaning as soon as we kind of grew up a little bit and faced a little bit of suffering, we had to redefine our faith.
Did you know the guy she left with?
Yeah, and I really liked him. In fact, I still like him. I don't have any hate.
Are they together now?
I believe so. I'm not sure. They have no web presence.
You've also had Sarah Silverman, Joy Behar, T.J. Miller, Whitney Cummings. Are they all friends of yours?
For the most part, everybody that you mentioned, Joy was a new addition. I don't think she knew it was my show, because I was like, hi, Joy, thanks for doing this. And she was like, okay, yeah, great. I was like, all right.
Is this show scripted?
Is this show scripted? It's funny that you ask. You're good at this. Almost every joke in that scene was improvised. Meaning we work very hard on the scripts. Judd Apatow is the executive producer, and he's a wonderful writer. We write a lot of the scripts together. So you write it, you have the track, but we always try not to use it as much as possible.
Evangelical and comedy sounds like an oxymoron.
Yeah.
Do you still have your beliefs?
They've changed. They've changed a lot. It's really hard. There's not really a word for what it is now. I call myself a Christ-leaning, spiritual-seeking person. I like the metaphor of Christ. I like the myth of the New Testament and the Bible in general.
You call it a myth.
I do call it a myth, but I don't think myth is not true. I think myth is truer than literally true. I think literal truth is the lowest level of meaning. So there are stories that help, well, come on,
Literal
Larry.
truth is the lowest level of meaning?
I would say so. When it comes to like the mystery and the essence of life.
But I always say, what's it all mean? You know what it all means?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely.
And run from anybody that says they do.
Do you do stand-up?
I do.
Do you do religion in stand-up?
No, not directly. In fact, I think maybe the worst way to try and transmit something profoundly true or eternally true is by talking about it directly. I think, my stand-up, I swear, for example, but little old ladies come up to me after shows all the time, and they're like, I love how clean you are. And I like that because that's saying that the transmission behind what I'm doing has a positive.
So you swear, but they don't hear the swear words?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Maybe it is because they're little and old.
How do you and Judd Apatow get together?
I don't care for him.
You don't like him?
Yeah.
Which makes good co-executive producers, right? In this business, it pays.
You know Judd. He's the best.
Yeah, he's great.
He's one of the most generous, but one of the most talented people I've ever met.
Yeah, what is his genius?
He is living in this world while also simultaneously standing next to himself and thinking and writing and joking about this world. So what I've learned from doing the show is my ideas are fed to Judd so that he'll have ideas, if that makes sense. It's almost like going to a king or an oracle. I'm like, I have this idea where maybe my character stays with Bill Burr, and Judd will be like, maybe he goes to Connecticut. And then I go to Connecticut.
I get it.
When you have that level of reverence for somebody's expertise and their work and their wit, I love working with him. And he's one of my dear friends now.
Our guest is Crashing creator and star Pete Holmes. Up next, on his path to comedy and what growing celebrity can do to your material. We'll be right back. We're back with Pete Holmes. Crashing airs Sundays, 10:30 p.m. on HBO. You wanted to be a youth pastor.
I did, yeah.
Did you study the ministry?
Almost. I didn't go to seminary, but I went to a Christian college where they had majors
What school?
Called Gordon College,
Where?
which doesn't sound like a real college.
Where is it?
It's in Wenham, Massachusetts, which is next to Beverly, Massachusetts, which is where we get Beverly Hills. The people left Beverly, Mass. and came to Beverly Hills. But none of that means anything. It sounds like my parents hired a man named Gordon to tutor me for a summer.
Were your parents religious?
I became more religious than they were because I was a young man and I believed grown-ups. If you were wearing khakis, and God help you if you had glasses, I would believe anything you told me.
You perform for Christian audiences, right?
You mean now?
No, then.
Then? I mean, I did a little bit. I performed in my chapel a few times. But then you start to realize like a community that wouldn't let you say SOB. I said SOB, an acronym for a curse. And people groaned and got upset.
What was your first paid gig?
I remember, I moved to Chicago. I started in Boston. I moved to Chicago to do improv as well as stand-up. And there was a guy named Dave Odd. I still have the $10 that I made from that gig framed at my house because it was the first time. Some terrible road show. I started with Kumail Nanjiani, who's in the Big Sick. We would do these shows that were just death.
And he paid you $10?
And I didn't even know. He gave me $10 and I was like, I should have used it for gas. I framed it. I'm not good with money.
You named Seinfeld and Steve Martin among your comedic influences.
Absolutely.
They are very disparate, though.
I guess so. I think they both have a silliness. You do something silly and you do it well. Certainly Steve Martin is more playful, but I appreciated the fact that they were clean, firstly, because I could get in as a believer. But I also really identified with their love of the absurd, and still do. Steve Martin is somebody, and Seinfeld, that I will listen to for pleasure, even though I've listened to it over and over. As he would say, he's the master of
You
timing.
can watch Seinfeld episodes over and over.
That too. But I really love the man. I want to be clear about that. As somebody, sometimes my character on this show, people go like, I love Crashing. I don't like that Pete guy. Remember when Jerry used to get that? When Seinfeld was on, they'd be like, I love Seinfeld. I don't care for that Jerry guy. He's kind of okay. Well, guess what? And I'm speaking kind of through him about myself. He makes the show. So you do love him. You know what I mean? Like I get defensive. I'm writing what the other people you like are saying.
You've said the difference between clean and dirty and being ugly and light.
Yeah, that's a big belief for me.
You're ugly and light.
No. I try not to be ugly.
You're clean and dirty.
Well, how dare you? No, sir. I think there's a difference. For example, if I did work the Christian market, there's certain things you can't say. One of them is pissed off. You can't say, I'm pissed off about this or this. Piss, it's a swear.
What's wrong with piss?
It comes out of my wee several times a day.
How about pee?
I don't think you could say PO'd, peed off. But that's my thing is we've confused holiness with morality. And this is one of the things that drains the life and the vitality out of spirituality.
Was your wife leaving you, made you part ways with evangelicalism?
It felt like God didn't hold up his end of the bargain, and that's something my character on the show says, is I think a lot of times we look at God like, you're from Brooklyn, like the mafia. You're like, if I pay God by not swearing, not drinking, not smoking, not having sex, not even hand jobbing, if I give him everything he asked for, which is not, if you look at the Bible, what he's asking for, if you give him that, he will then protect me and make me flourish.
So help me, Pete. What are you now? Like I guess I'm an atheist, or I say agnostic, but
right.
I don't believe you're going. You believe you're going somewhere when you leave it?
That's a great question. That's a question I ask on every single episode of my podcast, because I can't stop absorbing people's interpretations. I think death is a wonderful mystery. I think it's not a glitch in the system. I think it's something that gives life urgency and meaning, and I do believe it's a profound mystery.
Yeah, I'll tell you how mysterious it is. I'm a total skeptic. I don't believe it. I met a guy yesterday named Harry T. from Australia. This is the truth. And he communicates with dead people. All right, I laughed at that. He got my father down, got his name right, my brother, my mother.
Well,
but he got things right. And he was saying they were in the room with him. Very nice guy, funny, right?
yeah.
Now, I'm a skeptic, so it was ridiculous they're in there, but he described them to a T.
Yeah. So
How
what
do
do
you
we do
explain
with that? I take that T and I make it a cross. I'm just kidding. I believe, here's my belief of God. Joseph Campbell, so I became an atheist after my wife left me. I found the work of Joseph Campbell, The Power of Myth. I'm sure you know Bill Moyers. I'm sure you know all these people. Did you meet Joseph Campbell by any chance?
Oh, never met Joseph Campbell, read his stuff.
He's amazing. So this is the God that I believe in. The God, as Joseph Campbell defines it, is a metaphor for a mystery that absolutely transcends all categories of being, of human thought, including being and non-being. So when you say you don't believe in God, that's completely valid. I celebrate that and I welcome that voice. There's no part of me that wants me to make you into a clone of me, because we're all just trying to understand something that, it's like dogs trying to understand the internet. But there is a way to like kind of commune with this, and you felt it in music or love or art or conversation.
But how about hypocrisy, evangelicals who give Trump a mulligan?
Who needs it? I belong to no one and nothing, just like you. I'm into freedom. I'm into spiritual freedom. I'm into merging with the love that keeps the molecules of Larry King, and keeps the molecules of Pete. That this all should be just a swarm of nothing, but here it is, an intelligent universe.
Up next, Pete on his secret life. He was a cartoonist for The New Yorker, and the best advice he's gotten. More with the crashing creator after this.
I shook your hand, Larry. I have a cold. I'm sorry.
In there?
Somebody get the Purell
You
hose,
shook
please.
my hand, and you have a cold?
I did.
Wait a minute.
At least I'm telling you now.
You're going to give me the flu?
No, sir, I don't
Pete
have
Holmes came here and gave me the flu?
I don't have the flu.
Pete Holmes?
I swear I didn't. There you go. I knew you had it on you.
This is so Jewish.
That is very Jewish.
Hey, you're my age, you forget that you don't want the flu. You know, they talk about kids having trouble with the flu.
Yeah.
Old people you don't read about because they die.
Of course.
Okay.
Purell is activated by the friction of your hands.
Really?
Yeah, you got to do this. Purell.
You know these things.
The chosen.
There was a guy named Purell invented it.
Is that true?
Yeah. Is
You
that
know
true?
these?
I read a story about him in The New Yorker.
Oh, you know, I've been in the New Yorker.
You drew cartoons for The New Yorker.
I did.
Get printed a lot?
4 times. I wanted to do it. I got it once. I submitted for 6 months. I don't know how well you know the cartoonist, but Jack Ziegler came by the office. Bob Mankoff is the cartoon editor. And I had been submitting, in my opinion, 10 cartoons that was the best of all time. That's the arrogance of the comedian. I was like, I wasn't saying that, but I would resubmit cartoons as if to say, like, did you see this one last time? They wouldn't buy. Then Jack Ziegler, I talked to him, I showed him my work, and he put in a word for me. Real old school
What was
stuff.
your first cartoon?
It was a therapy cartoon, classic, New Yorker. And it's a guy telling his therapist he has kind of like a hollow look on his face, and he says, I think I accidentally repressed my good memories. Yes.
Is it harder to sell a comedy series or a cartoon to The New Yorker?
That is a good question. I would say that the rejection that the New Yorker bathed me in, dare I say cemented me in, was good rehearsal for the rejection that we know of show business.
What do they say when they reject it?
Nothing. Just like a terrible girlfriend.
What do they pay for a cartoon?
I don't know, $300, just like a terrible girlfriend?
You think it's gone up since you did them?
I hope so.
Why don't you submit again?
I'm just kidding. I said because I'm joking. Because I don't have time. It's a huge thing. It's like a very, you have to be doing it.
I love political cartooning too. They're geniuses. Don Wright.
Oh, sure.
Pulitzer Prize winner was a friend of mine.
Is that right?
Genius.
It took, 6 months, 10 a week. I mean, you think of how many hundreds I had to submit before they bought one. And it was not, it's
But
not
it's a
easy.
genius in cartooning.
For sure.
Because say it all in one picture. Okay, after years of steadily working in the industry, Crashing could be your big mainstream success.
It's, I'm sure you've been in this situation many times. We're waiting right now to see if it gets picked up.
Oh, it'll get picked up.
Oh, you.
You want to be a big star?
Do I want to be a big star?
Want to be Seinfeld? Come on, admit it. Why not? I want to be Seinfeld. I want to be Holmes.
That's funny. It's interesting.
Why is that funny?
Because getting someone to admit something that might be perceived as grotesque is pretty funny.
No, well, I don't mean to. Do you want to be as big as Seinfeld?
I don't know about that. I enjoy the level of fame that I'm at right now. This is going to sound kind of, I don't know, like a sweet answer that's false, but it's real. I enjoy the opportunity to connect with people. I'm sure you do too. Here you are doing the show. You don't need to do the show. You don't need the cash, Larry.
But I do. But I will tell you though, my goal was never to be it. It came by osmosis from whatever, but that was never my goal.
Can I tell you something that I tell a lot of young people? I say you should follow the dream that's also following you, if that makes sense. Meaning, I have this drive in me. It happens to fit in the containers marked comedian, actor, writer. But I'm doing what Pete Holmes is supposed to be doing. I'm Pete Holmesing the hell out of this Pete Holmes. And it happens to flow into these kind of culturally praised containers. But I'm just doing what's written on me to do.
You are now happily married, right?
Very happily married.
Marlon Brando told me that his job as an actor is to observe, but it becomes difficult when you're famous to observe because the people you're observing are looking at you.
I love that. I'll meet that quote from Marlon Brando with a quote from Sinbad. This is real. I love the Sinbad quote. He says, comedians are funnier when they ride the bus. We're kind of saying the same thing.
Yep.
It's like as soon as you start flying first class, you have fewer jokes about Coach. And let's be honest, life is Coach, Larry. Not your life, but life is Coach.
I'll look back at you. How you doing back there?
Yeah.
We play a little game of If You Only Knew. You do not have to answer, Pete. It's not a courtroom.
Okay.
Who's your childhood celebrity crush?
I refuse the question. I'm just kidding. Tiffany Amber Thiessen, 90210.
Oh.
You remember that show? She was in the later seasons.
I live in that zone.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Beverly Hills is from Beverly, Massachusetts.
Secret talent.
Secret talent. When I'm stoned, I can play the piano.
Guilty pleasure.
Playing the piano stoned.
Person you trade places with for a day.
For one day. I don't want to say Larry King. Everybody must say Larry King. I would like to trade places with, I'm going to say Penn Jillette, one of the more interesting people I've ever met.
He sure is.
Right?
Oh,
I'd love to be in that brain.
He's a libertarian.
He's fascinating.
And they're great magicians.
And they are. He was on episode 2, the season premiere of the second season of Crashing. Penn Jillette is on.
What keeps you up at night?
Neighbors.
Proudest accomplishment?
Valerie, my wife.
What never fails to make you laugh?
Oh, videos of babies laughing.
Something you wish you were better at?
Comedy says, say, answering these questions. Truth says, I wish I was better at listening.
That's important in interviewing.
I know. Well, the number one criticism I get is that I interrupt a lot. But
Don't
I always
do that.
I know. You just interrupted me to say it.
Chris Matthews never finished a sentence.
Is that true?
He don't let you finish a sentence. Watch him. No sentence gets finished.
I know. I'm getting better at it. But interrupting is a way of listening.
Yes, you have to interrupt when you feel
Yeah.
that the guest has extended, but the guest counts.
Yeah.
So if you feel the guest has gone a little over, your duty is to the audience.
Things I'm learning. Thank you, sir.
Best piece of advice you ever got?
It was weird that I said thank you, sir. It sounded strange. Best piece of advice. Bill Hicks said, if you are yourself in what you're doing, you will have supply and demand covered because no one can be you as well as you can be you. Dr. Seuss also said that.
Funniest fan encounter?
Funniest fan encounter. I signed boobs once.
Where? Not in New Orleans at the Mardi Gras? I was king of the Mardi Gras once.
Oh, really?
Signed a lot of boobs. How did it happen to you?
A guy and his wife. He was like, would you sign my wife's boobs? And I was very reluctant. But I did with a Sharpie.
What did she do? Unhook her?
It was still in the bra. But, I mean, as a repressed Christian boy, it was my 4th of July. I celebrate it every year.
One thing you'd like to change about the world?
Compassion.
Favorite thing about Hollywood?
I love that as shallow and hollow as our reputation might be, make no mistake, we're in the flow business. We are creating things and we're pushing things downriver and we're giving expression to thoughts and ideas and materializing dreams. And that really is special. The money and the fame, who cares? The business and I have a gym for you, can you hold, all that is secondary. We are manifesting stuff, and that's exciting.
What's your least favorite thing about Southern California?
I have gym for you, can you hold, I don't need a phone call to recap a meeting I was just at. The meeting was great, they thought I know, I was at the meeting. I was there.
Something you long believed to be true and realized wasn't.
I was raised very old school New England. My father, my mother kind of gave me these ideas that like if something ends, like a marriage, I'm divorced, that it was a failure. Valerie and experiences, people similar to Valerie have helped me learn that just because something ends doesn't mean it's a failure.
Did you have bitterness after your wife left you?
Yeah, I think I felt everything.
Did you know the guy when she left you?
Yes, I did. He was a good guy.
You knew him as a friend?
I liked him, yeah, and he liked me too. I think he was conflicted. Look at me, I look like a golden retriever if it stood up. You don't want to break this guy's heart.
How did you meet Valerie?
I met Valerie in San Francisco at Cobb's Comedy Club. She came to a show of mine.
And she met you after the show?
She met me after the show, and I asked her for a drink. And then we stayed in touch.
Tell me something people don't know about you.
I do a podcast where I think every single thought I've had has been recorded. So if I were to tell you something that people don't know about me, Val says my butt is like a baby's. It's like every other part of me grew.
People don't know. I don't have to hear that.
No, I'd like to tell you a little bit more.
No, forget it.
The butt is very soft.
Forget it. To be likable or to be funny, we're taking the big questions for in our final moments with Pete Holmes. Why was that funny? Crashing
I'm still thinking about my baby butt.
Crashing airs Sundays on HBO. Stay with us. I'll sign his butt after. Back with Pete Holmes. Crashing airs Sundays, 10:30 p.m. on HBO. It better be renewed. The evangelical community has gotten a bad rap in this country recently. Do you think it's merited?
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah.
Like evangelicals who support Trump.
Yeah, I don't understand.
Once you see that scene coming off the bus or whatever that was,
right.
How could evangelicals support him?
I don't understand. Well, you know, we've lost the narrative. The Jesus story has been perverted and misused in a million different ways, and this is just another example. But I mean, you can't look at me and tell me that Trump is a choice of love or understanding or compassion or forgiveness or grace or peace or joy. That's a choice of fear. And if we can quiet ourselves down enough, you can understand. Like a big blowhard bully that's like, oh, I know the answers. You can kind of maybe understand. So I try and have compassion as well going that way. But to confuse the energy of Trump with someone like Jesus or Buddha or anybody is just, it's like saying this is like a hovercraft.
I'm scared of dying, are you?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
I'm scared of the mystery.
Isn't that strange? And we rehearse every night. We rehearse death as we fall asleep. You know you're going somewhere. And you go into an unknown place. But every morning we practice resurrection, so it all works out. And if you nap, are you a napper?
Yeah.
A couple times a day you practice dying, so it's all good. I take comfort in the fact that everyone did it. That seems like a Jewish proverb. Like, how can it be? Everyone did it.
Swami Satchidananda told me once,
You met him?
yeah, when you wake up in the morning, that's a gift.
Wow.
So why not approach it? So what if it's raining?
Yeah.
You deserve this?
Wow.
Interesting. Okay, we have a couple of social media questions. Lucy Wiggs, listening to your podcast has me interested in learning more about Ram Dass, Chopra, etc. What books do you recommend, and how have these teachings affected your creative process?
Well,
A serious question.
yeah. I answer this all the time. People want to know where to get started with Ram Dass, who I love. He has a series on iTunes called Experiments in Truth, which I think kind of summarizes it all. And it's almost better as a lecture spoken.
Rather than a book.
I think it can be. And also Ram Dass has this thing, he's a showman. He talks about how he's in show business. And he taught me something that, from reading him, that I think about when I do shows or live shows. It's like, as soon as you think it's you trying to entertain them, you're sunk. As soon as you find that common ground where you are them, where we're all afraid of dying, where we're all trapped in this predicament at the same time, and I can recognize myself in you and you in me, then I have a shot at really entertaining you.
You like Deepak Chopra, too?
I do, yeah.
I know him well, yeah.
Is that right? I'm sure he loves you.
100th Monkey Find. Who of the great comedy legends that you met or worked with was the greatest influence on you becoming funny man, and how did that comedian impact your style of comedy?
I do think it was Seinfeld, because Seinfeld taught me the difference between a comedian...
His stand-up.
His stand-up. It is the comedian and the non-comedian. Sometimes the only difference is the comedian wrote it down. So I started seeing him doing stand-up, and I was like, I've had thoughts like that. And I was like, I didn't know that was a joke until someone like him was like, no, it's a joke. Men don't need cotton balls, women need cotton balls. And I'm like, that's a joke? I got jokes. I've noticed a lot of weird stuff going on.
Great observationalist.
Wonderful. And I didn't know that could be comedy. And then when I started seeing his style, I was like, oh, I think I'm a comedian.
Deep thoughts. What's more important to you, being likable or being funny? Have you never not performed a joke because it was too mean or didn't fit your persona?
Yeah, that's happened a bunch. In fact, a lot of my comedy hinges on the fact that I'm kind of like a light person. So sometimes if I get heckled in the first 5 minutes, I'll tell someone to like, shut the hell up or something, I'll yell at them, and then the rest of the act doesn't work. I'm like, so anyway, kittens and puppies are great, and it's like, well, that doesn't work.
And the difference between liked and being funny is the combination of both, right? If they like you, they'll laugh.
I don't think you can separate the two. If you're likable, chances are people are going to be titillated by you.
Bob Hope I asked Bob Hope once, because you're Bob Hope, do you have them when you walk out? And
Yeah.
he said, for about 2 minutes.
Yeah. Seinfeld
Then you
says-
better be funny.
There's a grace period. And that's what makes stand-up so great, is it is a meritocracy to a certain extent.
Pete, this has been great. I'm going to do your podcast.
Please.
I look forward to it.
I can't wait. Thank you. This was an honor.
Bless you, my son. Thanks.
Purell that hand.
What?
We have God, but also Purell.
Thanks. You have a cold and you did that to me.
I know.
Thanks to my guest, Pete Holmes. The second season of Crashing airs Sundays at 10:30 on HBO. You can always find me on Twitter at King's Things. We'll see you next time.